The woman in the white coat raised the riding crop above her head like she was swatting a fly. She brought it down across the back of a dog who had never once, in 7 years of service, made a sound when he didn't have to. The dog didn't yelp. He just looked up, and the man kneeling beside him, the man who had pulled 2 teammates out of a burning vehicle in Kandahar without stopping to check if his own arm was broken, that man went very, very still. His name was Calloway Reed. People who knew him well, which wasn't many, called him Cal. He was 38 years old. He had been on leave for 11 days. He had driven 6 hours from CFB Esquimalt on Vancouver Island to get to this dog show in Kelowna, because his niece had asked him to, and because his dog, a German shepherd named Flint, had never once let him down, and Cal thought it might be good for both of them to do something normal for a change. Normal. He hadn't really understood what the word meant since 2019. There are people in this world who move through it like they own everything they can see. They don't look at other people so much as past them. They don't ask questions. They issue statements. They don't apologize, because apologizing requires believing, even briefly, that someone else's experience matters as much as your own. Silvana Whitmore was that kind of person. She had arrived at the Okanagan Canine Classic that Saturday morning in a black Range Rover with heated seats and a custom license plate that read WHTMR1. She wore a white blazer, cream trousers, leather boots that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and the expression of someone who had never once stood in a line without being annoyed by it. Her dog was a Borzoi named Crest, long-legged, silky-coated, impossibly elegant, trained by a private handler in West Vancouver at a cost Silvana mentioned to anyone who would listen. Crest was her 4th dog in 5 years. The previous 3 hadn't been fast enough, or sharp enough, or whatever enough. Silvana did not tolerate underperformance, not in her real estate portfolio, not in her charity boards, and certainly not in her dogs. The agility course at the Okanagan Canine Classic ran through the lower field of Waterfront Park. 42 obstacles, a panel of 3 certified judges, prize money that didn't matter to half the people competing but mattered enormously to the other half. The atmosphere was the particular mix of casual and competitive that happens wherever people love a thing deeply and also very much want to win. Cal had entered Flint almost as an afterthought. His niece, Wren, was 14 and obsessed with dogs. She had begged Cal for 3 months to bring Flint somewhere she could show her friends. When Cal's leave finally came through, he'd looked up events within driving distance and found the Classic. He had no expectations. He hadn't even confirmed whether Flint was technically eligible to compete. Military working dogs existed in a category most civilian competitions hadn't thought clearly about, but the event coordinator, a kind, harried woman named Bev, had taken one look at Flint, looked back at Cal, and said, "We'd be honored." So there they were. Flint ran the course the way he did everything, without wasted motion. The other dogs in the advanced bracket were good. A border collie named Scout, who practically vibrated with eagerness. A Belgian Malinois named Remy, who took the weave poles like they were nothing. Several Labradors who were fast and joyful and made the crowd laugh. Flint didn't make the crowd laugh. He made them go quiet. There is a difference between watching a dog who is trying hard and watching a dog who simply knows. Flint moved through each obstacle with a kind of complete attention that was almost uncomfortable to look at. He didn't play to the crowd. He didn't glance back at Cal for reassurance. He ran like every obstacle was a mission and he intended to complete the mission. When he cleared the final jump and came to a seated halt at Cal's feet, the crowd was silent for 1 full second before they erupted. Cal crouched down and pressed his forehead briefly against Flint's. "Good boy," he said quietly. That was it. That was all he said. Wren, standing at the fence with her friends, was crying and didn't care who saw. Silvana watched from the competitors' area. Her jaw was tight. Crest had run a clean round, a genuinely good round. Under normal circumstances, Silvana would have been satisfied. But she had watched Flint run, and she had felt something she rarely felt and had no useful tools for managing. She had felt second place. Crest placed second in the advanced bracket. The announcement was made by the event announcer with genuine warmth. The judges gave their scoring breakdown. Everything was fair. Everything was clearly decided. Silvana did not accept it. She waited until the crowd dispersed, slightly, until Cal was crouched near the water station at the edge of the course, letting Flint drink, until there were fewer eyes than there had been. Then she walked over, riding crop in her left hand. She'd carried it all day, an affectation. Crest didn't need it, and she looked at Flint the way she looked at things she considered beneath her consideration. "That animal shouldn't be in a civilian competition," she said. "It's not a fair comparison." Cal looked up at her. He didn't say anything. Military dogs are trained differently. It distorts the results. It's like putting a professional athlete in an amateur league. Cal stood up slowly. He was 6'1". He had the kind of stillness that people who've never been in a dangerous situation often mistake for passivity. It isn't. It's the opposite of passivity. It's the thing that happens when someone has trained their reactions so completely that they no longer leak. "I hear you," he said. That was all. Something about his tone, the complete absence of defensiveness, the complete absence of apology, seemed to infuriate Silvana in a way she hadn't anticipated. She had expected him to justify himself, to argue, to give her something to push against. He gave her nothing. "You should have declared him. There should be a separate category." "Bev cleared him," Cal said. "You can talk to Bev." He turned back to Flint. And that was when Silvana brought the riding crop down. Not hard, not like she was trying to hurt the dog. More like she was pointing at something, gesturing, making a point. Except her hand was moving and the crop was in it, and she miscalculated, or didn't calculate at all, the way people who have never had to think about consequences rarely do. The crop caught Flint across the left shoulder. The sound was sharp and small and very loud in the sudden quiet. There are moments in life that split into before and after. Most people never experience them deliberately. They happen to ordinary people in ordinary places. A car accident, a phone call, a word spoken in the wrong direction. For Cal, this was one of them. He had been in firefights. He had been in situations where the adrenaline came up so fast and so complete that it erased everything else. He knew what it felt like to go from stillness to action in a fraction of a second. He also knew how to choose not to. That was the thing nobody understood about the training. It wasn't about making you faster. It was about making the space between impulse and action large enough to make a decision in. Cal felt the impulse. He chose. He put his hand on Flint's back very gently, and he looked at Silvana. She was already pulling back, crop at her side, the expression on her face cycling through something that wasn't quite remorse, and wasn't quite defiance, and hadn't found a home yet. "That," Cal said, "was a mistake." He said it the way he said most things. Quietly, without drama. Wren had seen it from the fence. She had her phone out. She hadn't been filming before, but she had been filming for the past 30 seconds, because something in the conversation had felt wrong, and she was 14 and 14-year-olds have a faster instinct for wrong than most adults give them credit for. Around them, people had stopped. Bev was already moving. 2 of the judges had seen it. Silvana tried to manage it the way she managed everything, with money and with words. She offered Bev a donation to the event fund. She said it was an accident. She said the crop barely made contact. She said she hadn't been aiming at the dog. She said a lot of things, in the practiced register of someone who had talked their way out of situations before and expected to do so again. Bev listened. Then Bev said, "I'm going to have to ask you to collect Crest and leave the grounds." Silvana stared at her. "That's not. I have 3 judges who saw it," Bev said. "I have competitors who saw it. And I'm going to call the BCSPCA as a precautionary measure, because that's the right thing to do." Silvana looked around for someone to agree with her. The woman nearest to her, a grandmother in a sun hat who had been competing with her golden retriever for 15 years, turned away. The man beside her looked at the ground. The couple behind him found somewhere else to be. There is a particular kind of loneliness that belongs exclusively to people who have spent their whole lives buying the loyalty of the room. The moment the room stops being purchasable, they have nothing. Silvana walked back to her car with Crest on the lead. She did not look back. What the crowd didn't know, what nobody there except Cal knew, and Cal hadn't said, was that Flint was not simply a well-trained dog. Flint was HSD K391, a military working dog who had completed 2 deployments with the Canadian Special Operations Forces Command. He had been trained in explosive detection, patrol, and apprehension. He had a service record, a commendation, a handler note that read, in the dry language of military documentation, exceptional intelligence, high pain threshold, remarkable composure under stress. He had been wounded once, in a situation Cal still did not talk about. He had come back from it. He had been walking at Cal's left side, or sleeping at the foot of Cal's bed, or sitting in the passenger seat of Cal's truck for 4 years. Not because he was ordered to, because that was what Flint chose, in whatever way a dog chooses things, which is more real than most people think. He had never bitten a civilian. He had never growled at a child. He had once sat for 40 minutes with Cal's youngest nephew, who was 5 and frightened of dogs, just outside arm's reach, until the boy decided to reach for him. The riding crop had caught him on a shoulder that had a plate of scar tissue under the fur. From the incident Cal did not discuss. Flint had not made a sound. He had looked up at Cal the way he always looked up, waiting for information about what came next. The video Wren posted that night had 37 seconds of footage. It showed Silvana approaching. It showed the conversation, no audio, but the body language was unmistakable. It showed the moment the crop came down. It showed Cal's hand, very slow, very deliberate, resting on Flint's back. It showed Cal looking at Silvana. And then it cut, because Wren had stopped filming because she was 14 and had begun to shake. She posted it with a caption that said only, "My uncle is a Navy SEAL, and this woman hit his dog at a competition in Kelowna today. His dog served 2 tours. Please share." By midnight it had 4,000 views. By 6 the next morning it had 90,000. By the time Cal woke up, because he still woke at 5:30 out of habit, and lay in the dark of his Kelowna hotel room listening to Flint breathe, it had passed 200,000 and was still climbing. His phone had 37 missed calls. He put it face down on the nightstand and took Flint for a walk by the lake. The lake in the early morning was flat and gray and beautiful. Flint walked beside him without a lead. He didn't need one. He never had, not really, but civilian areas required it. And Cal respected rules, even when he found them unnecessary, because that was the kind of person he was. Cal watched the water. He thought about what the next few days were going to look like. He had dealt with attention before, in smaller doses, the kind that followed a uniform, or a commendation ceremony, or a news story about his unit, always careful, always with personal details withheld, because that was how you kept yourself and your people safe. He had never wanted visibility. What he wanted right now was coffee. And for Flint's shoulder to be okay. The vet Bev had called the previous evening, a competition vet who handled event injuries, had checked Flint over and found no structural damage. The scar tissue was thick. The blow had been what it was, the careless action of a careless person, not a serious assault. Flint would be fine. Cal had sat in the examination space with his hands on his knees and breathed very carefully until he knew that. Silvana's name was in the video comments by 7 a.m. Someone had recognized her. Someone else confirmed it. A third person linked her real estate firm's Instagram. The firm had 12,000 followers, nice photos of luxury listings, a curated comment section. By 9 a.m., the comment section was no longer curated. By noon, 2 journalists from Vancouver had called the firm for comment. By 3 in the afternoon, the firm's managing partner, a man named Gerald, who had known Silvana for 11 years and considered her a difficult colleague on her best days, called her directly. The conversation lasted 4 minutes. Gerald had a talent for brevity. Silvana spent the rest of the afternoon with her lawyer. The interview request came through Wren's account first, then through Bev's, then through the CSOF Public Affairs Office somehow, which Cal found both impressive and irritating. He declined all of them through Wren's mother, who was Cal's sister Joanna, and who had a blunt efficiency about these things that he had always respected. Joanna texted him, "Are you okay?" He texted back, "Fine. Flint's fine." She sent back a string of emojis he didn't fully interpret, and then, "You're going to have to say something publicly eventually." He thought about that. He didn't think about it for long. What Cal posted, 4 days later, from the parking lot of a Tim Hortons in Merritt, because that was where he and Flint stopped for the drive back to Esquimalt, was not a statement. It wasn't polished. He wrote it in the Notes app on his phone, read it over once, and posted it to the account he barely used. It said, "Flint is fine. He's been through worse and he knows it. I'm not interested in anyone being punished or shamed. I just want people to understand that working dogs, military, police, service, give everything they have to keep people safe. They deserve to be treated accordingly. That's it. That's the whole message. Thanks to everyone who reached out. We're heading home." He put the phone back in his pocket. Flint was sitting in the passenger seat with his nose out the crack of the window, reading the air the way he'd been doing since he was 18 months old. "Ready?" Cal said. Flint didn't look at him. He was focused on something in the middle distance, a bird, maybe, or just the particular texture of the afternoon. Cal pulled out of the parking lot. Some things end quietly. The BCSPCA opened and closed an investigation inside of 2 weeks. The finding was that no ongoing risk existed. The incident was documented. Silvana Whitmore was issued a formal caution under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. Her lawyer called it a technicality. The BCSPCA's statement was 3 sentences and said nothing about technicalities. The Okanagan Canine Classic changed its competitor conduct policy. Bev drafted the new language herself, in plain words, without euphemism. It took her 20 minutes. She'd been thinking about it for years. Gerald's firm quietly restructured its partnership arrangement. Silvana's name came off the website during a routine update, according to the firm's communications. No further comment. The video passed 4 million views. Cal did not watch it. The thing about Kelowna, about that specific afternoon, the riding crop, the silence, all of it, was that it kept coming back to Cal in small ways over the following months. Not as trauma. He had a working understanding of trauma, and this wasn't it. More as a question. He'd stood in that field with his hand on Flint's back, and he had chosen. He had made a very deliberate choice, in a very small number of seconds, about who he was going to be in that moment. He thought about that choice sometimes. In Afghanistan, choices happened in darkness and chaos, and the consequences were enormous and irreversible. You trained for them, you replayed them, you lived with them. In a park in Kelowna in the middle of a dog show, the choice had been smaller. The stakes had been lower. Nobody's life had hung on it. And yet, he thought it had mattered. He thought, and this was the thing he could not quite put into language, the thing that sat in him without resolving, that a person's character wasn't only made in the big moments, it was made in the small ones. The ones nobody was filming. The ones where the cost of doing the wrong thing was low enough that you might get away with it. The ones where you chose anyway. Flint was asleep on the floor of his office at the base when Cal thought this, nose between his paws, ears twitching occasionally. Dreaming, maybe, of something Cal would never know. Cal looked at him for a long time. 2 months after Kelowna, Cal got a letter. Paper letter, in an envelope, addressed to him through the base's Public Affairs Office, which was the only address the sender could have found. The handwriting was careful and slightly uneven, the kind of handwriting that belongs to someone who doesn't write letters often. It was from a woman named Petra, who described herself as the grandmother of a boy named Luke. Luke was 9. He had been diagnosed with a degenerative vision condition the previous year, and he was afraid. Petra had been watching dog videos online to find something comforting to show Luke. She had found the video of Flint running the agility course. Not the riding crop video, the other one, the one Wren had taken earlier in the day, just before, when she'd been filming for fun and caught Flint moving through the obstacles in that particular way he moved. Luke had watched it 6 times. He had said, "That dog isn't scared of anything." How does a dog learn to not be scared? Petra had written the letter because she didn't know how to answer him, and she thought perhaps the dog's person might. Cal read the letter twice. He set it down. He picked it up and read it again. Then he went to his desk drawer, found a piece of paper, the plain white kind, nothing official, and wrote back. He didn't write about missions. He didn't write about training regimens or military protocols or the precise mechanics of how a dog learns to hold its nerve in a loud and chaotic world. He wrote about the first time he had taken Flint into a situation that frightened both of them. He wrote about how Flint had looked at him, and he had looked at Flint, and something had passed between them that he still couldn't fully name. He wrote, "I think the answer is that you're not alone. You have someone beside you, and they trust you, and you trust them. And somehow that makes the fear smaller. Not gone, just smaller. I think that works for dogs, and it works for people too." He signed it with his first name only. He included a photograph, printed at the base print shop, low resolution, slightly off-center, of Flint sitting on a dock at Esquimalt, looking out at the strait. He mailed it. He didn't know if it would help. He thought it might. Flint never went back to a competition. Not because Cal didn't want to. Not because anything had gone wrong. Just because the leave ended, and then the next rotation began, and the one after that, and time has a way of moving without asking. But Wren asked every year. Every summer she texted, "Can you come to Kelowna? There's a show." And every year Cal wrote back, "Maybe next year." He meant it every time. There is a thing that happens, sometimes, when a person comes home from something large and tries to fit themselves back into something small. The world has continued without them. The corners of it that were theirs have been rearranged. The quiet is a different kind of quiet than the quiet they remember. Cal had been through this enough times to recognize it. He didn't fight it. He let the adjustment happen, the way you let a shoulder heal, not by ignoring it, not by forcing it, but by giving it time and not making it worse. Flint helped. Flint always helped. On the bad nights, the ones that didn't happen often anymore, but still happened, Cal would wake up with his heart going too fast, and the dark pressing in from everywhere, and Flint would already be there. Not trained to do it, not commanded. Just there, 75 pounds of warm and certain, pressed against Cal's leg, just present. It was enough. It was always enough. The narrator wants to say one more thing before this ends. Not about Silvana, who made her choices and is living with them in whatever way people like her live with things. Not about the video, or the views, or the comments section, which had more warmth in it than the internet usually manages. About Cal. About the fact that he drove 6 hours with a dog so his niece could have a good Saturday. About the fact that when the riding crop came down, he chose to be the kind of person he had always, quietly, been. About the fact that he wrote a letter back to a grandmother in a city he'd never been to. About a 9-year-old boy who was learning how to not be scared. About the fact that nobody asked him to do any of it, he just did. There is a version of this story that makes Cal into a symbol, soldier, hero, archetype, lesson. That version is available and easy to tell. This is the other version, the one where he's just a man with a good dog doing what good people do, which is showing up, quietly every time.